Okay, so I've got another slimy practice, and that is a deliberately difficult refund process. And I'm pretty sure most people would have dealt with this, or at least a difficult customer service process as well, where there's a problem and for love nor money, you can't get it fixed. And I had a very long and bloody conflict with my energy provider, where I was basically paying for my next door neighbour's bills because I was in a new build apartment complex.
You were constantly, I remember this happening, you were constantly wondering why your energy bills were so expensive, despite the fact you were trying to be as frugal as possible.
Yes, so I'd just go home and sit in the dark, just like, yes, lights, too expensive. And it affected my life in a significant way, in that large sums of money were being taken out of my account. And then it turned out that, yes, when they had the meters fitted, they were swapped around by accident, and I was paying for my next door neighbour. But it took a year and a half of me calling up weekly. So this is hours and hours, if not days, of my life spent trying to fix a problem that's not my fault. And I had people say, I remember going through to a South African lady who asked me whether I had an electric fence around my property that was using up a lot of the power. I was just like, I live in an apartment and that's not normal in Britain.
Yeah, nobody does that just because you're South African. It might be more widespread where you're from, not here.
I also had someone asking me, what was it? Like, my bills were ridiculously high, and he's just like, oh, are you making sure to turn off your kettle and toaster after you've used them? I was just like, I'm not sure I'm going to be paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds in energy from like things being on standby.
Yeah, that would be rather ridiculous.
So I had to go through this process of people asking me stupid questions, just like, no, there's some sort of problem. And in the end, I just said, listen, I'll pay for the engineer to come out and they will find a problem. And they did find a problem.
Well, at least you put your foot down eventually.
Yeah.
But, I mean, on a similar note, obviously...
I've still not been refunded the full amount of money.
You're still waiting for it?
It's been nearly 2.5 years, yeah.
Bloody hell, at this point, Christ.
And by the time I get it back, it's going to be worthless.
Yeah, sadly. Maybe that's what they're banking on.
That actually ties in quite nicely to this next thing that I've come up on my own. It doesn't exist on the internet, but it's what I've dubbed the float revenue withhold. And this is where a company that has money of a customer's that should be returned back to them holds on to the money as much as possible, because having money is the best way to make more money. So if they hold on to it for as long as humanly possible, they can make as much money off of having your money, which they don't actually own legally.
I think what you've actually come up with there is reserve banking.
Yes, it is.
Fractional reserve banking is what you've come up with there.
But on a corporate level. On
a corporate level, that's fair. Mm-hmm. No, similar to your experience, this is obviously very small and something that happened to me recently that isn't talking about thousands and thousands of pounds. But this is one that I've experienced, which is, like you say, needlessly difficult refund process, or the organization setting the terms of what they need to do in such a lax manner that they can excuse themselves for everything and forgive themselves having to give a refund and just say, no, we don't need to do that because we did everything in our power, when whatever is in our power is the absolute minimum. So, for instance, my most recent example, and the reason I'm never using the Deliveroo service, again, I told Josh about this in the office, so this will be a good example for this, was I was feeling very lazy a few weeks ago. My missus was away, so I was like, well, there's no need to try and be fancy or anything. I'm going to order a KFC. No need to feel guilty about it. I order a KFC, put my phone on the side in my bedroom because I think to myself, well, they're going to knock on the door, right? Obviously, they're going to knock on the front door. Every delivery driver who comes along knocks on the front door. And I decide I'm going to do some cleaning because the flat was a bit of a tip. Start doing some cleaning, take about 10 minutes, and come back to my phone, find that the order came way sooner than I expected. The delivery driver showed up outside the flat, made no attempt other than putting the notification and texting me on my phone, made no attempt to do the very simple thing of knocking on my front door to alert me that he was there and give me my food, and instead waited around for 12 minutes, drove off, and then I get back in touch like a minute after he's driven off. Can he turn around and come back? No. Can I get my money back? No. Can I make a complaint about this? No. I actively went through all of the channels, the emails to try to get my money back, or at the very least make a complaint. And every single time I got the same pre-written response of, we did everything in our power to get your food to you, so goodbye. And I'm like, well, you didn't though, because the driver, whatever useless bellend decided to show up that day, decided that just knocking on the front door was far too much effort for him, which was absolutely ridiculous. So that was a very annoying one for me, because once again, they set the parameters of what they need to do as an organization. And the only parameters that they set were, we need to show up and send a text message. There you go.
It's a pretty low standard, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And from one ranty anecdote to another, I've got a quick one about companies that are failing quite often claim to have processing errors with systems and demanding money from you. And I've got a very good example of this. When I was a student, my student accommodation, I was paying a letting agency, and the letting agent sold the property to another letting agent. I didn't really know about it beyond them sending me a letter, but I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll be paying someone else, or maybe they'll take ownership after my tenancy's ended or something like that. Didn't really think much of it. And then I received a letter in the post saying, oh, you owe us all of the rent that you've paid since you've moved into the property. And I at first I thought the letter was fake. I thought it was a shakedown because I didn't recognise that it was from the company. And I called them up saying, I've received this letter. It didn't seem especially professional, so I'm not sure if it's actually from you. But
and they were like, actually?
Yeah, actually it was. And yes, you do owe us this money. And I said, but I've already paid that. I don't understand. Like, well, on our system, you haven't paid it, so you owe us this money. And then I said, well, if you get in contact with a previous letting agency, they'll give you the confirmation you need. And they called me up a few times, and I said the same thing. Like, listen, you talk to them. You've got all the details. You bought the property off them. Talk to them. You'll get all the proof you need, because I called the original letting agency up, and they said, yeah, that's fine. We've got the proof of payment. If they contact us, we'll be able to pass it on to them. So they were helpful. Whereas this other company, which I later found out after Googling their name, that they were close to being in administration, basically trying to shake me down for money, which they clearly knew I'd paid already, because in the documents which were provided by the original agency, which they actually handed to me, they showed me, yes, we've got written down here that you paid this X amount of money, which was correct. They were provided with that money, but they tried to use miscommunication as an excuse to basically try and get more money out of me, and threatening legal action and potential imprisonment against me. And in the end, I said, listen, you contact the previous letting agent, because they refused to do it. They're like, no, it's up to you to provide us details. And I said, no, it's not. I've had no dealings with you. I don't know who you are. I've directed you to where you can get the information. If you call me again, I'm going to call the police because you're trying to fraudulently extort money from me.
And that is fair.
And mysteriously, after I said that, the calls disappeared. And all of a sudden...
What a shock.
Yeah. Funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a bit.
But yes.
Sure, it was just an honest mistake, though.
Yeah, but I've heard of similar cases to this in other areas as well. And I fail to believe it's a mistake. I think it's just something that a company can deny. Say, oh, no, it was just a processing error, I swear, because that's very difficult to prove.
I mean, you can't
prove malice, can you?
Yeah, and you don't have, it's not like you have visual access to their screens, so you can't see what they're seeing. They could just be looking, they could be watching SpongeBob, for all you know, just going like, no, ain't nothing showing up on our screens. You don't know. You as the customer are not aware, especially when it's an organization that you didn't even know you were a customer of.
Yes.
Like, how are you supposed to account for that in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And I think lots of companies do this, where they say you owe them money when they're in hard times to try and shake people down, to see what pennies fall out. I'm sure people do pay them. I'm just really tight-fisted. It must be the Scot in me.
No, I think
refuses to surrender money.
That's the right thing to do, is to stand up for yourself. Because I think Josh there, despite the fact that it was a little ranty, has shown you what you can do in some circumstances like this, which is really just stand your ground when an organisation that you are not aware of tries to get in touch with you and decides that you owe them money for services that they've never provided or that you've already paid for, which is that you need to stand your ground and make sure that you make it clear to them that you are willing to put your foot down on this matter.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.